Hello everyone, you have come to Tata Comic Preview channel. Let read together. Have fun. Although you only had the cultivation of a martial emperor, the power of the taillight sword's full force slash was not weaker than a martial supreme's move. However, the Emperor Qi of the Nine Heavens suppressed everything, and Che Shuyao's move contained infinite rules. The moment the 11th sword touched the handprint, it disintegrated. Boom boom boom. The giant handprint annihilated the sword technique and pressed down directly. There was no one who could resist it in the space. Yu's pupils contracted, and ripples appeared around him. He forcefully used his spiritual power to break open the space, turned into a phantom, and disappeared. What a strong spiritual fluctuation! Feng Yi's eyes were filled with shock. He had also caught the frequency of the fluctuations, and said in surprise, Che Shuyao, you have to be careful. This kid is a little weird. Do you need my help? Yu appeared in the space above Che Shuyao and he shouted, clear sky technique. A powerful 9th tier artifact aura spread out, and the heaven-shaking might of the sword broke through the layers of darkness. It flowed down like mercury, sweeping across the world. Che Shuyao was also shocked, but he quickly sneered and said, Feng Yi? This joke is not funny at all. I'm dealing with a mere martial emperor. Do I need your help? Just stand there and watch. An ant should act like an ant. If you think an ant can bite an elephant to death, then I'll show my might and turn you into a speck of dust in this world. Che Shuyao's cold face looked even colder under the golden light in his hand. A golden power appeared in his palm, spiraling up and erupting with a shocking aura. Soul break kill. With a loud roar, he blasted towards the sword ray that was slanting down. It was like a scorching sun rising into the sky, illuminating everything. Just as he attacked, a few figures moved in the light and surrounded Che Shuyao. Their powerful auras rose, and they attacked. Xian Hua Axe Turtle Shell. Finger Sword Hong Yuan. Shen Feng also raised his power to the peak. An ice dragon was formed from his cold moon saber and it whizzed forward. The 9-winged spirit snake bird screeched and circled in the air for a while before fiercely charging down. The compressed air around it burned with raging flames, and its eyes revealed its wild nature and ferocity. What? Che Shuyao was shocked by the combined power of the 4 attacks. Each of these 4 powers was not weaker than Yu's sword ray. What's going on with these ants? How could he have such a domineering attack power with such a low cultivation? If it wasn't for the fact that his origin energy level is too low, he might even be on par with a martial supreme. Feng Yi's eyes were also wide open, and he revealed a look of disbelief. 9th tier profound armament. It was actually another 2 9th tier profound armaments. Who are you people? Even the 4 Extremes Chamber of Commerce would not be so generous as to produce 4 9th tier profound armaments at once. Even a martial supreme would go crazy over this. Che Shuyao quickly turned around and threw out a few punches with his left hand. The robe on his arm was blown up like butterflies. Every punch was accompanied by ripples, creating a shadow in the surroundings. Boom boom boom. The 4 of them had joined hands, but he had actually received it with one hand. Foolish. No matter how many ants there are, they're still ants. The 9 Heavens realm is a chasm that you'll never be able to cross. After Che Shuyao's punch landed, his momentum grew and he tore the light ball in front of him apart with his bare hands. Just as he stretched out half of his body, his head was bitten off by a golden shadow that pounced at him. What is it? In his panic, he threw a punch, but the golden shadow bit his arm. In an instant, a chill came from the depths of his soul. Only then did he see that the golden shadow was a ferocious face. A golden soul slave. Che Shuyao's heart skipped a beat. He immediately recognized what this thing was. He shivered in fear and felt his soul slowly leaving his arm. The big mouth that bit his arm was dripping with saliva. It was terrifying. Damn it, you dare to devour my soul? You're beyond redemption. Annihilate. Exterminate. He shouted in horror. His left hand formed a sword finger and pointed out more than a dozen strong winds in the void. They all turned into Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens and pierced through the soul slave with an ear-piercing sound. The soul slave opened its mouth in pain and spat out Che Shuyao's arm. It wailed in the air and ran toward Zhang Xiaotian. The soul slave was connected to its master's mind. After being pierced by the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens, its golden light was greatly reduced. Zhang Xiaotian also suffered a backlash and spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with sharp intent and despair. Although the Soul Devourer clan and the Myriad Stars Valley seemed to coexist peacefully on the surface, they would secretly be in a life-and-death situation as long as there was an opportunity. If these great demons were killed, he would be the next one to die. Otherwise, he would not dare to challenge the martial supremes, might even if there was a slight chance of survival. Soul Devourer clan scum, I'll annihilate you first. Che Shuyao's right hand was in excruciating pain, and it seemed like he couldn't even exert any strength. The golden soul slave bit him and devoured part of his soul. He was in great pain. He didn't care about those great demons and 9th-tier profound weapons and directly crossed over in 2 steps. His face was full of malevolence and anger. He wanted to take Zhang Xiaotian's life. Fire like glass scarlet flame. Suddenly, an extremely high heat wave came from the air and passed between him and Zhang Xiaotian. The burning power of the flames made even him, a martial sovereign of the 9 heavens, feel a burst of horror. What kind of flame is this? Che Shuyao was shocked. The flame turned into a line and wrapped around his body. It even burned away the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens that protected him. He could even smell death. This had completely overturned his understanding. One must note that the Emperor Qi of the 9 heavens was formed by condensing the rules. It was the greatest in the world and could suppress everything. He was not the only one. Everyone present was shocked. As soon as the divine flame appeared, all the other forces lost their color. Zhang Xiaotian quickly retreated after a short moment of daze. If it wasn't for the flames that saved his life, he would have died under Che Shuyao's hands. He looked to his side gratefully and saw Yunxiao's face pale and his body struggling. Although the power of the flame was strong, it was not burning brightly. It was faintly discernible, as if it was going to be extinguished at any time, as if it was lacking in strength. Che Shuyao also noticed this and shouted. Golden light appeared around his body and rushed toward the godly fire like waves. Yunxiao's heart trembled. The phoenix true flame he had now could only be used to scare people, but it was not enough to fight on the battlefield. It could not withstand Che Shuyao's sea of emperor aura. He hurriedly pointed in the air, and the flame was extinguished in an instant before it was retracted back into his glabella. Only then did his face turn slightly better. So it's your doing. Che Shuyao's face was filled with killing intent. He gritted his teeth and said, "You've been very strong since the chess game space. Let's see if you're really that strong after I break your balls." He turned around and bent his back, his legs slightly bent, and his body began to emit circles of golden emperor qi. He stared at Yunxiao and Zhang Xiaotian, ready to rush up. The terrifying aura sent the 2 of them flying, and blood sprayed in the air. Che Shuyao's face turned cold and suddenly, the sound of a war drum was heard. It was like the sound of an iron horse. It turned into sound waves and entered his ears, attacking his sea of consciousness. Soundwave combat technique. He was suddenly shocked. In the distance, the 9 Li battle drum appeared in front of Li in the air. He kept hitting it with both hands, and the battle drum vibrated in the air. However, the surroundings were as calm as water. Only a sound wave formed a line and directly attacked him. Arg! You should die. Che Shuyao's eardrums were in great pain, and 2 streams of blood flowed out from his ears. His head was buzzing, and he had a splitting headache. Originally, this sound wave combat skill could not have hurt him at all. However, after his soul was bitten off by the soul slave, his mental state became extremely unstable. Kiki. Zhang Xiaotian threw out the soul-devouring banner again. The golden soul slave laughed and rushed out. It opened its mouth and wanted to bite again. Although it was pierced by the monarch chi and its strength was greatly reduced, it devoured Che Shuyao's arm and recovered quickly. It bit again.
Ah!
The golden soul slave took advantage of the moment when Che Shuyao lost control of his mind and suddenly grew to a few feet tall. It opened its mouth and bit down on the upper half of Che Shuyao's body, swallowing it down. Che Shuyao's pained screams were heard. He roared crazily and wisps of golden emperor chi shot out from his body, piercing through the soul slave's body. He was surrounded by the emperor chi, opened the soul slave's mouth, and escaped. However, his entire upper body was covered in blood, and his hair was disheveled. He held his head in his hands and roared non-stop. Just now, another part of his soul had been bitten off, and Li's battle drums were getting more and more intense. Not only were they attacking his sea of consciousness, but they were also starting to stir up the chi and blood in his body, as if they were about to break out of his body. Feng Yi. Attack. Quickly kill these people. He held his head and howled in pain in the air. He had finally put down his dignity as a martial supreme and cried for help. Feng Yi had been frowning for a long time, but considering his companion's face, he still held back and crossed his arms in front of his chest. Now that his hands were down, his long robe fluttered in the wind. Everyone's expression changed. It was not easy to suppress a martial supreme with all his skills, and it was all due to luck. If Che Shuyao had not been arrogant and underestimated his opponent, he would not have ended up in such a humiliating state. As the saying goes, you won't die if you don't seek death. Feng Yi was much calmer. He didn't rush to attack. Instead, he took a step to Che Shuyao's side and began to check on his injuries. Then, he took out a pill and fed it to him. He let him sit in the air and recuperate. Then, he reached out his right hand, and a large amount of Emperor Qi surged out and surrounded Che Shuyao, forming a defensive space that protected him from being affected. Although his movements were extremely normal, Yunxiao's heart sank when he saw them. The act of Feng Yi directly reflected his calm and heavy character. Every move he made was done carefully, proving that this person must be an expert in battle. Even if there was another arrogant Che Shuyao, they would not be able to handle him, let alone a more terrifying martial emperor. It was as if a heavy stone was pressing down on everyone's heart, and their mood became extremely depressed. The fiend's gaze swept over everyone and finally landed on Zhang Xiaotian. He revealed a fierce look and nodded, "Your Luo is very good." Being stared at by him, Zhang Xiaotian's whole body became cold. He shivered and hurriedly took a few steps back. He released his golden soul slave to block in front of him, his face full of panic. The rest of the people became nervous as well. It was already difficult to breathe under the pressure of the martial sovereign, but they were all determined to fight to the death, so they felt a little more relaxed. Killing someone was just a nod, so what if he was a martial supreme? Don't tell me you can kill me twice. It seems like they're all prepared. I'm going to make my move. The Feng Yi's face sank and his expression turned cold. He raised his hand and pointed at Zhang Xiaotian. He was judged to be the most dangerous person among all of them, so he had to kill first. Zhang Xiaotian instantly gasped. Before he could react, the finger force broke through the air and pierced through the golden soul slave. It was about to shoot into his head. Bang! All of a sudden, a mini bell appeared in front of his head and blocked the power of the finger. However, the finger force was too strong and directly sent the small bell flying. Rings of sound waves spread in the air along with the sound of the bell. After being blocked, the finger force burst into countless strong winds that shot in all directions. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Junior brother Zhang Xiaotian, who was the closest, and the people of the Hall of Holy Fire all tried to block it in fear. The cultivation of a martial honor was still good, but the three martial emperors of the Hall of Holy Fire were directly penetrated by the strong wind. They all spat out blood and their lives were in danger. Yi Fan also dodged in a panic, but his arm was pierced by a burst of energy, blood flowed out, he quickly hit a few vital acupuncture points. The remnant power of a martial sovereign's finger was so terrifying. Tao Can's face turned pale, and he hurriedly went to treat his three severely injured companions. Fengzhu and Qiguang stood in front of Yi Fan, afraid that he would be in trouble. The dynasty bell kept flying back and forth in the air, letting out a buzzing sound and producing countless concentric sound waves. Finally, it made a circle and flew back into Yunxiao's hand. When the dynasty bell was shot by the finger, he had also suffered a great mental backlash, which directly damaged his heart meridian and caused him to spit out a large mouthful of blood. At this moment, his face was extremely pale, but he was still unyielding and his battle intent had not diminished. Zhang Xiaotian was the strongest person among them. If he was killed by a single finger, then there was no need to fight. It would directly become a one-sided slaughter. That was why he risked his life to save Zhang Xiaotian. 9th tier profound armament? Feng Yi was stunned. Looking at the miniature bell in Yunxiao's hand, his mind seemed to have short-circuited. In order to refine the 9th rank 5 elements beast taming ring, he had killed many creatures, but it was still a semi-finished product. And the dregs in this space actually each had a 9th tier profound armament. Even he, who had always been calm and steady, had a dark expression on his face. Was there any justice in this world? Could it be that after staying in the sect for so many years, the continent's 9th tier profound armaments could already be mass-produced? Or had some freakish great alchemist invented a method to mass-produce 9th tier profound artifacts? Otherwise, it didn't make any sense. You guys really surprised me. Feng Yi said in a serious voice, however, no matter how much he struggles, he can't escape the path of fate. From the moment I appeared, your fate had already been decided. As for the profound armaments on you, I will not be polite and accept them. His face turned cold, and light gathered in his hand. The 5 elements beast taming ring, which was connected to his mind, emerged, emitting 5-colored divine light and constantly growing in the air. The 5 mini rat king phantoms kept running on the ring axis. They looked cute, which was very popular with girls. But at this moment, no one liked it. Although the 5 elements beast taming ring was only a semi-finished product, it was still considered a quasi-9th tier profound artifact. Moreover, in the hands of a martial emperor, the power it displayed was absolutely a world of difference. The face of Feng Yi was abnormally calm under the illumination of the 5-colored light. However, the more calm it was, the more depressed it seemed. The next attack would be earth-shattering, the attack that would end this battle.